Hello, everyone. So today we are going to be going through the first section in Unit 6 Statistics. Blech, that was a tough one to say. It's Statistical Studies and Central Tendency. A lot of S sounds in this. It's fun and exciting. It's great. So let's get started. So, Statistical Studies and Central Tendency. Statistics is concerned with the collection and analysis of data. There are several different types of studies that are used to collect data. We're going to go through each of them very briefly, and then there's actually going to be a little section that you need to read on your own for each one of the types of statistical studies. So the first one is surveys. Surveys are used to collect quantitative information from a specific population. They may involve opinion or factual information. So this is, I'm sure you've taken surveys before. They ask you questions, you give your answers, and they compile all of that data into some kind of an analysis. A survey in which the entire population is polled is called a census. And this happens once every 10 years in the United States, that they poll everybody. They get ethnic diversity, average income, a bunch of other stuff that I can't explicate right now, but there's a lot of information they gather from the yearly census. The second type of study is an experimental study. It's a controlled experiment. So an experimental study is an experiment where a variable is measured to get initial data, then something is changed and the variable is measured again to get a second reading. So this is like where you would take a test. We would go through instruction in class, and then you would take another test to see how your knowledge has changed. So like a pre-test, post-test would be an experimental study. That's a really good way to look at all of them. So the number of cigarettes someone smokes on a daily basis, then you measure that data, and then you would take and do something to them, like have them go on the patch or nicotine gum or something like that. And then after they've been on it for a while, you would measure the data again to see if it has changed anything. An observational study is when a study is conducted with no outside influence from those conducting the study. So this is literally just a study. You're not doing anything, you're not influencing anybody, you're just making observations on what's going on. When people come in to observe classrooms, that's an observational study. They're just looking at what's happening in the class, seeing how things are moving along, how things are progressing with no influence. They don't instruct the class, they don't make changes to the students, they don't do anything like that. So it's just making observations. That's an observational study. What I would like you to do tomorrow when you come in is I'd like you to come up with some kind of an example of either an observational study, an experimental study, or a survey. Some kind of a situation where one of those could be used. So you only need one from one of those things. Make sure you write it down so that when I ask for it during the warm-up, you will be able to give it to me. The next thing we're going to go through very briefly is the measures of central tendency. So when you're analyzing data, you usually want to have some kind of a single number that defines the information, kind of. This is called a measure of central tendency. So it's measuring where the center of the data is. There's three different ones you can use. You've probably done these before, that's why I'm going through them very quickly. The average is called the mean, and it's symbolically represented with the symbol X bar. And when I say X bar, I literally mean an X with a bar over it. That is the mean. This is going to disappear when I click the next slide. Sorry about that. So it's X bar. Make sure you draw your line over it. I say it's the mean because when your teacher asks you to find the average, they're being mean because it's the most work. The median is the middle of the numbers when they are in numerical order. So you put them in order, find the middle. And the mode is the most frequently occurring data entry that there is. Now each of these has uses in different places. We will talk about them more as the chapter goes on. We're just doing a quick introduction right now though. There's one more part of central tendency, and those are called quartiles. So we know the median separates things into two equal parts. Quartiles separate it into quarters, or 4 parts. So there's 3 quartiles. The first quartile is the middle of the lower half of data. So you find the median and then find the median of the first half. And that is the first quartile. The second quartile is also called the median. That's the middle of the data. And the third quartile is the middle of the upper half of data. So you find the middle of the whole set and then find the middle of the top half. Something that is asked for every year at least once on the Regents exam is interquartile range. So this is a guaranteed at least 2 points. The interquartile range is the difference between the first and third quartiles. So that is quartile 1 minus quartile, quartile 3 minus quartile 1. The third number is bigger, so you do the third quartile minus the first quartile, and that gives you what's called the IQR, or interquartile range. Box and whisker plots. You've done these before. We are going to do a couple of them, but they are not difficult at all, especially since you can use your calculator to figure out all the parts of this. So the first thing here is this is the minimum right here. Then you have the first quartile. Then you have the median. Then you have the third quartile. And then you have the maximum. And the one thing that I don't really like about this is normally there will be a number line under this with 60, 65, 70, 75, 80, 85, 90, 95, 100, 105 with the marks on it. They won't usually give you the numbers there. You're going to have to figure out what they are. So that is a box and whisker plot. Again, we'll make them, but your calculator can do 90% of the work for you. Which, this next slide here, it says use your calculator to find the mean, median, mode, and quartiles and the interquartile range. We're actually going to do this in class. Whoops. We're going to do that in class. So what I would like you to do for class tomorrow is make sure you have one example of an experimental study, a survey, or an observational study so that we can discuss it for a little bit at the beginning of class. Other than that, I hope you have a wonderful evening, and I will see you in class.